Welcome to the Marquis Masters Podcast. I'm Ryan Estes. Right now, a lot of people are scared of AI. They think it's complicated, dangerous, or about to replace them. And that fear is quietly costing careers, businesses, and entire industries momentum. Today's guest proves that fear is optional. I'm joined by Steve Munkeby of NextGen Publications, whose career spans the U.S. military, aerospace, the shuttle program, robotics, and now best-selling books on generative AI. Steve doesn't talk about AI as if it's some abstract future threat. He shows us how to turn confusion into clarity, translates that complexity into plain English, and helps people reinvent themselves at any stage of life. In this conversation, you'll learn how generative AI actually works, why asking better questions matters more than the technical skill, how veterans can translate military experience into civilian careers, and why AI is the most powerful learning companion most people aren't using yet. This episode is for founders, operators, veterans, professionals over 40, and anyone who wants to stay relevant without getting overwhelmed. For deeper stories, iconic leaders, and timeless insight, head to marquiswhoswho.com. That's marquiswhoswho.com, where legacy meets the future. And if this episode made you think differently, leave us a review. Consider it your 5-star signal flare to other curious minds. And now my conversation with Steve Munkeby. Steve, welcome to the Marquis Masters Podcast series. Thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. Now, there's a lot of stuff I want to get to in this conversation, largely based on your experience and your incredible career spanning from aerospace to your military service to your work as an author. But I want to start right with where we're at right now and your work writing about generative AI. And just, to lead things off, maybe explain a little bit why you think it's important that folks start to really kind of experiment and maybe master some of these tools in generative AI.
Generative AI is the key to learning AI. It's a lot of books being written about it. I've written some of it myself, but generative AI is simply how do you ask AI questions? That's what generative AI is all about. So if you want to know something, you ask. So for example, I was working in the past with an older gentleman. He was afraid of AI. He had just gotten a CT scan and he was looking at the file and he said, "Do you understand this?" And I looked at it and I go, "No, I really don't understand what the report for your CT scan is saying." So I said, "Let's take that and feed it to AI." So we used generative AI and said, use the attached file and translate this into simple to read and understand language. In seconds, AI now gave that CT report to the older gentleman. He understood every single word. And he went from being afraid of AI, 10 seconds later, now he was the biggest fan ever. He didn't realize it was that simple. And that's how I do my books with AI. I just try to keep it really simple, tackle the problems that people think are really big, but just show them that it's very simple.
It's really important right now. I saw a great quote from you that said your work aims to bridge the gap between emergent technology and practical applications. And I don't think your friend is alone in being a little apprehensive and maybe nervous about AI. Where do you think that stems from?
It's all about complexity to me. AI sounds so complicated, and many people are just believing that AI is going to kill all the humans off. They've been looking at the movies Terminator or something like that, and they believe that that's happening right now, but it will not happen as long as human beings maintain the ability to make decisions, because AI cannot make decisions on its own unless you give it that ability to do so. So you might have it monitoring your inventory, for example, and if something is getting low, then you could have AI alert the assembly line to, crank it out some more widgets. But that's the only reason that it's complicated they just don't quite understand it's that simple. And, they're scared by people, uh, small different examples that have been coming on the internet. And people then just say, well, AI is not for me.
Yeah, we live in such a great culture with amazing movies. They've really sold us on the doom and gloom of the robot apocalypse. But when you think about it, I can relate, largely because I think LLMs do a great job of kind of mimicking human personality based on their ability to predict whatever the most effective next word would be. But the fact is that there's no subjective experience of being an AI. There's no feeling of being an AI. They're not sentient, even maybe to the point of like a grasshopper. I mean, I could probably feel like there's got to be like a nice quality of a grasshopper that's got a leaf in its mouth, but machines don't have that capability. So I think we're safe there when it actually comes to AI. But, there is a lot of people talking about artificial general intelligence, like, oh, it's going to become sentient, it's going to wake up, which might kind of scare people off a little bit. But I think I'm with you where the benefit as a tool, of where it's at right now is so great.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
in particularly in kind of like the way you described, as in, being able to translate maybe some very technical, maybe some very scary language into a practical way that you can kind of digest information. What are some other ways that you're using AI, and maybe what are some of the tools that you would encourage other people to check out?
Well, one of the things that I'm really proud about, and we had talked about the military a little bit earlier, but I wrote the book on cam from camouflage to corporate. And it's not a really big book, but I wrote it specifically for all the transitioning service members. It doesn't matter whether they're male, female, Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, it doesn't matter. I've written the ability for them to take their service code. For example, I was in the infantry, and that service code for the primary soldiers was 11B. They called them 11 Bravo. Taking that designator, I have now figured out how to have AI take that code and give them a translation of all their skills. They would list them from a military standpoint, and now AI gives them the civilian language. So they're teaching them to use the proper terms. It's like learning a new language. So now they can take that and look for those in the want ads, help wanted. But I've given them the ability to have AI do that for them. They'll search the whole country looking for those opportunities, and then they'll find what that organization's looking for, and it'll build a resume for them off of that. They don't have to do anything but hit the button. And then they give them interview questions and answers to the questions. All of it is in that book. It's helping them with a tremendous issue because it started with me when I transitioned from the army into the civilian world. I was lost. I was so frustrated. I thought maybe I should just go back to the army. I can't figure out how to become a civilian because I can't talk the language. But now, through that book, I've given all the service members the ability to do that in a very simple way.
Have you ever wondered how some people's stories live on, not just through their work, but through history itself? For nearly 130 years, Marquis Who's Who has been documenting the lives of leaders, innovators, and changemakers across every profession. From CEOs and scientists to artists and educators, Marquis has captured the stories behind success, the people who define our times. Being listed in Marquis Who's Who isn't just recognition, it's taking control of your personal brand and using it to create a meaningful and impactful legacy. It's a record of your life's work, preserved, published, and accessible to generations who will study, research, and be inspired by your contribution. If you've built something meaningful and you've made an impact in your field or community, This is how you ensure your story is told and your personal brand is maintained accurately with integrity. Visit marquiswhoswho.com to learn more about how you or someone you admire can be featured, because history remembers those who take the time to record it. Incredible. And people can pick up that book on your website, stevemunkeby.com, and
Yes,
also it's available on Amazon as well.
absolutely.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it seems like some of us were plagued with kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is to say when you elevate to a certain level of competency and mastery, then you understand keenly all of your how far you have to go to get to the next level,
Mhm.
So oftentimes where people are most, I think, proficient, they lack the ability to sell themselves on it, So maybe that's a great place where LLM can be kind of like a professional companion where it's like, hey, no, actually, all this rich experience you have over here, in this case in the military, will translate to all these other fields. You're probably too close to it, you can't see it.
That's right.
Amazing. Cool. And it looks like you're a very proficient writer. So talk a little bit about your process. When do you write, and how have you kind of developed this capability of publishing so much?
Well, first off, thank you. I really appreciate that. I did not know I was a writer until I started. I just said, I'm going to write that military book. That was one of the first things I wrote. And then I met that older gentleman I was telling you about on his CT scans. So now then I wrote my 10 book series about, empowering those over 55 to use AI. I just started writing, and they're not very complicated books, but I used generative AI that you mentioned earlier and showed how to ask the proper questions. That's what I did to be able to write. I interacted with AI and tried to figure out what AI was doing, how it could be done for those particular groups of people that I mentioned. And then I just put it in the book. And that's what many of the books are. Take take what you're looking for. Here's how you ask the right questions, and you're going to get the answers you're looking for.
Incredible. I'd like to transition a little bit. I love starting with AI because it's so exciting. It seemed like technology was kind of in a lull for a while. It's like, yeah, social media is great, I guess, but after kind of the advent of the internet, it kind of got boring. But AI has really sparked a lot of curiosity and interest, especially in me, and I think maybe that's a thread that kind of we share is kind of this wonder and awe about the cosmos and kind of what we're doing. I read this great thing about you that said you watched the moon landing at 14, inspiring a dream of space, and really went on to have a very distinguished career in aerospace. So maybe talk about that as a kid. What were your expectations of the future, and how did that draw you into flying?
Oh, you mentioned one of my most favorite memories, sitting there in front of the TV that day, watching them land on the moon. And it was just like, I want to do that. I, I grew up on a farm milking a lot of cows. Now, when you compare landing on the moon to milking cows, that sounds like an interesting career. So that's how I got started on, taking more math and sciences, tried to work hard to do those types of things. Of course, couldn't become an astronaut. That's more preordained for most people. But I still wanted to work in the industry, and I started out by going to the Army because ROTC helped me pay for my college. I gave them 4 years of active duty service, and then I got out and I got a job working on the Space Shuttle. In fact, they were so happy to have me, they launched the first shuttle on that particular day just for me. No, I'm kidding. But it happened. It happened that very day, my first day on the job.
Wow.
And I wrote code. I had gotten a computer science degree from my undergraduate, and I was writing code. And then I moved on to that to robotics. Doing robotics on space station and helped build the very first unmanned ground vehicle. Things like this that are high technology. And as you mentioned, there was a big break there. And that was about in the time period about 2008. I don't know if you remember that, but the government basically didn't approve the budget for a year. So the rules were, if there's no budget approved, then you go back to the amount of money that was being spent the previous year. Well, on everything that I mentioned, they had nothing the previous year. So that's what caused the big break that you mentioned in technology that was very quiet for so long, trying to build up the amount of money being spent.
Yeah. You know, amazing. The space shuttle program, when I was a kid, it was like I had like the little, not the matchbox, but the little aluminum one, and you could open up the thing and the arm came out. I mean, it really felt like we were living in the future, where you'd
Absolutely.
see it fly down. It was just so incredible. And of course, inspired, Musk and all these other guys that have gone and start these big aerospace companies. And what are some takeaways back then? Working that close to the space shuttle, to unmanned vehicles that we're seeing crawling all around Mars now. What are maybe some unexpected or maybe lesser known facts or information that people might be interested in about the space shuttle program?
Well, the space shuttle program specifically was just an outstanding thing to actually put more people into space and actually now start putting more technology into space. You mentioned Musk in all his satellites. If it hadn't been for the space shuttle, he wouldn't have been able to put up all those satellites. We would not have the same communication around the world that we currently have right now. It was a huge driver to translate what people wanted but hadn't been able to get enough attention from other people to fund to invest in those types of things. And that was really what I always thought was the big deal about the space shuttle.
Where would you like to see the space program go from here? I know they're very, I mean, Musk has talked about like we got to get to Mars. Let's put a base on Mars, and maybe that'll be the best application for some of the robots he's building because they don't need to breathe oxygen. But what would you like to see with the space program?
Well, the big deal of going to another planet or something like that is it just takes so long. So if you really wanted to get more attention and get a bigger bang for the buck, as far as from a time standpoint, you'd want to have the propulsion systems so much better than what they currently are right now. Go faster. It's kind of like in Star Trek. We need warp speed now, and that's really what's missing. Is that the only thing that should go there? Personally, I'm still big into unmanned exploration. We have
Yeah.
we have some things that are out there way far out further than whatever has been touched previously. We are learning from those things on a daily basis. And this to me is what has to really be done at this point in time.
Yeah, and we're certainly coming into that arena. And your work in robotics, and we're really kind of on the precipice of this new age of robotics. Where whether they're humanoid or whatever they're going to look like, we're going to have kind of household robots, probably largely powered by AI, that might be able to help us with some of our domestic tasks. Now I get a little bit nervous. I would prefer that, the robots would look like R2D2 rather than C3PO. That kind of freaks me out if I have
Mhm.
some like human robot. Again, I've seen too many movies. But where do you see in the near future that kind of Americans can expect to kind of be interacting with robots?
Well, you mentioned the path. Right now, the big deal, the ones that are getting more money to do their robotic work, is putting a face of a human on the robot. They want to humanize the technology because when they do that, then people say, oh, now I see what it is. It looks like me. I'm not scared of that anymore. That's really the trend, trying to make sure that AI is not so scary and usable. But that's the direction that has to be done. Everything that these robots do are require some type of language coding to tell them what to do. And some of it is phenomenal. I've seen videos of a robot walking on the ice and slipping and sliding and doesn't fall down. That's that's impressive. That whoever did that is just really on the top of the list as far as I'm concerned. But again,
Yeah.
next you got to have an application. What are you going to do with it? Just because you put a face or they can walk on ice, what are they going to do? And so far, nobody has come forward with ideas that will, help, break through that barrier and say, we have to go. For example, when Kennedy said we're going to go to the moon, boom, NASA just exploded because they had a target. Right now,
Yeah.
AI, robotics doesn't have that target right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because you think about it like, oh, you'd have like a robot butler or something, but it's actually a lot of dexterity to be able to do those kind of work or that kind of work, and tie all those things together. I think
Mhm.
it will be a kind of an inflection point for AI though, because when you're speaking to a machine, it feels a little bit more natural than the screen.
Mhm.
But again, just the humanoid shape, I would much rather have like a robotic giraffe make me a sandwich. And I don't know why. Maybe I'd be maybe I'd be nicer to it. I'd be like, "Oh, come on, buddy. You missed the peanut butter again. That's okay. Let you know." I'd love to talk about your military service. I know that was kind of the entry point for you as an author. I know civically you're a member of the American Legion. We want to give a shout out to them. How did your military career kind of shape the rest of your life?
Well, I went from graduating high school. I went to college to get my computer science degree. It was all paid for by the military through ROTC. I went into the infantry, and that is the absolute best thing that ever happened to me my whole life. And to me, of course, I'll not be popular in saying this, but to me, all young men and women should be required to have some sort of training like that, like they get in the military, because it shows you how to make decisions under pressure. How many places are you trained to do that? And I'm not talking about combat, I'm just talking about regular situations that still military handles, and these are not clear cut jobs. You don't go, 9 to 5 and everything is forgotten about what you were working on that day. It's a continuous activity. And for me, it was just so wonderful leadership, management. It set me up for the rest of my career.
The training, right? Was it fairly difficult, I'm assuming?
Yes and no. The basic leadership training is really not that much different than maybe what you would get in a civilian organization. Uh, what you talk about is really the same. Or if you got a degree in leadership or management from a university, again, it's very similar to what the military does to train its leaders. But it all goes beyond that. What you might see is now under pressure. Nobody teaches that except the military. You know,
Yeah.
uh, you know, uh, exceptions. If you have a plan, did you plan for an exception? Nobody but the military does that. You get the training and you always believe it's going to be green light the whole way. And that's not how the real world works. So that's what the military adds that all the other areas that do leadership management training just don't do.
Yeah. And it's interesting to like, have compulsory military service, maybe even just for that pressure training, because ultimately, like the hardest thing in a person's life is the hardest thing in their life. And if the hardest thing is that you're getting upset at your robot giraffe, and that's the hardest thing you've ever come across in your life as a kid, when you get older, life starts coming at you pretty fast.
It
So
does.
I think when you are in adolescence and you get pushed under pressure, you get exposed to the hardest thing you might ever deal with, in your life, and you get through it. I think it really sets the tone. I might have to agree with you on that one.
Well,
It's
it's an area that should be looked at, I think, and I think everybody that's at that age, I know for me, it helped me launch off into an area that I knew what I wanted. And where else
Yeah.
can you get some help in making that career decision? Most 18-year-olds right now, I see them just totally lost. They just, I
Yeah.
guess, plan on living forever with their mom and dad, because they have no idea what they're going to do.
Mom and dad's house is so nice. It's hard to get out of there, and for the teenagers that are listening, I come from a military family, and a lot of them kind of describe it similar to you. Almost, I remember my uncle saying like, "Hey, the military is a cheat code in life." The GI Bill, able to buy your home, like all the skills and technical training that you get. I mean, there is like it's a great time to serve if you could do it. When I was doing research about you, you've also got a lot of different hobbies and interests. Did I read correctly? Ballroom dancing?
You did. Oh yeah, that's one of my favorite, pastime to do when I'm not writing or doing some of the other things I've been doing in the past. Yeah, it's fun. It's great exercise. It's a happy environment. If you have a partner, it's something you can do together. And even if you don't have a partner, there's lots of singles that are interested in dancing with the other singles. So it's just a great, great environment. You meet a lot of really great people. It's relaxing and fun, and can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, my wife and daughter are fans of Dancing with the Stars. And naively, I was like, I could give that a shot. It's actually pretty challenging.
Oh,
It's not easy. I'm not a good dancer, I learned.
well, I never learned how to do it like Dancing with the Stars. I'm way down lower at the more beginning level.
Great. Let's talk about the future. I believe you have a whole nonfiction series, which is incredible. Have you started writing fiction and literature as well?
I have not. I've been more on the nonfiction side. I haven't tried the fiction side. Um, Maybe someday I can figure that out. But right now, I've been just busy passing along all the things that I have found that people need and want. And of course, that's in the area of the nonfiction. So maybe someone's going to say, I need something to relax me from all of this, and something, tell me some story about a robot that's going to save the world, something like that. That would be good.
Amazing. Yeah. I wouldn't take a stab at a novel, but if you need a partner writing comic books, maybe we could do that.
There we go.
There
Let's do it.
we go. All right. We're ready. It's that time in the podcast where we're ready to enter the lightning round. Steve, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. If you could meet one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Socrates. And it's all because of truth, questioning, and back onto truth again. That Socrates was all about that. And that's the area that I'm pushing into myself.
Well, you know what happened to Socrates? It's a little dangerous.
It is dangerous, but you have to take the risk to get the benefit.
Yeah. What is it about humanity? I think Socrates' story teaches us a little bit about ourselves. Why is it dangerous to push into truth like that?
Because people don't really want to know the truth. And if they knew the truth, then they can't say, well, I don't know. I guess I'll just have to go with that person instead of that person. It's kind of like our past on all the elections. What really upsets me is something that I'm going to use my hands here, something on the right or left. I'm not talking about that, but just to say this person stands for this particular capability. This person has something that's totally opposite. Both of them say they have the truth. And if any small 1% item differs between those two, then they say, well, that other person's a liar. That's very upsetting to me. And that's what's driving to me the need for truth. And if people knew that and had the ability to understand who was telling the truth and who wasn't, now we would have a lot less conflict, in my opinion, in the world.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of that conflicts comes from there's a rigidity in their truth because often maybe the thing that's most true is that everything changes, and what's true yesterday can change to something today, and maybe with Socrates kind of questioning everything and digging into what people's meanings are, it starts to illuminate those things, and I think if we know people are very scared of change.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
maybe I guess that's what always resonated with me with kind of the Socratic method and Socrates in general is to maybe be a little bit playful, you know, playful with truth. That way, people don't kill you.
Mhm.
Excellent. If you could start your career over again, would you have made any different decisions?
Not a single one. I I'm very happy. I had the pleasure of reinventing myself. I was in, I was in the military. Then I went to, leadership in the aerospace business. Then I become more of an author, now maybe an inventor. Every one of those steps, I've had the great pleasure of having the opportunity of reinventing. And it was just so much fun and hard, of course, very complex, at times frustrating. But no, I wouldn't have changed a single thing.
Yeah. And your ability to kind of reinvent and rediscover and do different things seems to be like an important theme. Is there a particular lesson or maybe inspiration that kind of carried you through those times when it was challenging?
Absolutely. When I think of reinventing, I have this metaphor that I use in my head. It's building a new home, but not tearing down what you previously built. That's the key to reinventing. In other words, you're improving, you're strengthening what you had in the past, making some small changes, but not doing a complete overhaul. You have to build upon what you've done in the past.
It's very productive because maybe people get locked in a certain box. They're like, I'm a car mechanic guy. I'm a wrencher. I can't work with AI. They start to put themselves in a box, but it's not replacing anything.
Yeah, and
Rather,
that's
it's like,
that's that's not so. They can do it. They just have to try it out and find somebody like me, either through a book or a companion, to start talking about it, and they'll soon see it's not that difficult.
great. And lastly, before we wrap up here, we love having you on the Marquis Masters podcast series. How have you benefited from Marquis Who's Who products and services?
I tell you, that is the absolute best organization I've ever come across. I'm just so delighted to be helped by you all at Marquis. It's just I can't say enough good things. It's been helpful because it's very well recognized. It's a very class act. So when anything is put out like this podcast or articles that you've done for me, it's immediately recognized on places like, LinkedIn and so on. People just go, wow, you got that done with Marquis? And I go, yeah, you should find out some more about them because they're going to be very helpful to you too.
Fantastic. Well, we certainly appreciate it. Steve, this has been amazing. People can learn more about you at your website for NextGen Publications, stevemunkeby.com. What's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Well, I am starting now, just recently starting to join a lot of the social media areas. So you're going to see more of my presence in that area because I I have more things to say, I'm finding. So that's a place that I can do it.
Fantastic. And I know I connected with you on LinkedIn, so people can do that there. We'll throw links to that in the show notes if you want to check out Steve's website or connect with him on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for having me.